When my parents died, the world didn't end loudly. There was no thunder, no fire in the sky. It ended quietly, like a door closing in a house that would never sound the same again. My name is Stephanie. I was 20 then. Peter was only 7. Paul was 10. Sadly, we lost our parents in a car accident on a dusty Ugandan highway. 3 words that became a lifetime sentence. From that day on, I stopped being just a daughter. I became a shield. I became a roof. I became a mother who had never planned to be one. 3 years later, at 25, I lived in Kampala in my Aunt Vera's house with my 2 little brothers. The house was always full, yet never warm. It smelled of alcohol and cigarette smoke. Strange men came and went. Voices rose and crashed like waves against thin walls. And my brothers, my gentle, innocent boys, learned too early how to flinch. Peter, 5 years old, learned to go quiet when footsteps approached. Paul, 7, learned to stand in front of his brother when voices got loud. Every insult Aunt Vera threw at me landed on them too. Useless. Too old to still be here. I've done my part. Sometimes her anger had no reason. Sometimes it had too many. Plates slammed, words cut, hands struck. And every time she raised her voice, my heart learned a new way to break. At night, when the house finally slept, I held my brothers close. We shared one thin mattress, our knees tangled, our breathing slow and careful. I promise, I whispered to them in the dark, I won't let this be our whole story. I didn't know how yet, but I believed it had to be true. I had no job, but I had skills. My hands knew hair. They knew how to braid confidence into tired heads. They knew how to turn mirrors into places of hope. I had also worked in a small restaurant once. Long hours, hot kitchens, aching feet, but honest work. I wasn't afraid of work. I was afraid of staying stuck. Every morning during the school holidays, while my brothers slept, I practiced. I braided imaginary clients. I rehearsed conversations in my head. I prayed, not fancy prayers, just honest ones. Please, I whispered, give me a place to start. One afternoon, everything changed because of something small. Peter came home crying. Aunt Vera had shouted at him for spilling water. Not screamed, shouted, the kind that shakes a child's bones. I cleaned his face, kissed his forehead, and something in me stood up straight for the first time in years. That night, after the boys slept, I packed a small bag. Not to run, but to be ready. The next day I walked. I walked through busy Kampala streets. I walked to salons. I walked to roadside restaurants. I walked with fear in my chest and hope in my pocket. Most places said no. Some didn't even look at me. Then, at a small salon on the corner of a crowded street, a woman with tired eyes and kind hands watched me braid a mannequin head. She didn't interrupt. She didn't rush me. When I finished, she smiled. "When can you start?" she asked. I almost cried right there on the tiled floor. The job didn't solve everything, but it started something. I worked early mornings and late evenings. I saved every coin. I learned more. I listened. I grew. The salon owner, Mama Ruth, noticed how I never complained, how I always spoke about my brothers, how my hands were gentle even when I was tired. One evening, she asked quietly, "Are you safe where you live?" I didn't plan to tell her the truth, but the truth had been waiting a long time. And when I finished, she said something I had never heard from an adult before. "Stephanie, you are not useless. You are surviving." A month later, she helped me find a small room to rent behind the salon. One room, thin walls, but it was quiet, clean, safe. The night I brought Peter and Paul there, they looked around like explorers. "This is ours?" Paul asked. "Yes," I said, smiling through tears. This is where morning begins. Life didn't suddenly become easy. Money was tight. Some nights we ate simply. Some days were long. But there was laughter now. Peter learned to sleep without fear. Paul started reading aloud again. And I learned that strength doesn't roar, it endures. I worked, I saved, I prepared my brothers for school, I braided hair during the day and dreams at night. 1 year later, I stood outside a small storefront in Kampala with my name painted on the glass. Stephanie's New Beginnings Hair Studio. Mama Ruth stood beside me. My brothers held my hands. When the doors opened, the future walked in. I don't hate Aunt Vera anymore. I understand now that broken people break others, but they don't get to decide our ending. I was called useless, but I became a foundation. I was told I was too old to need help, but I learned that asking for help is how we survive. I was afraid I would fail my siblings. Instead, I became their proof that pain doesn't get the last word. And sometimes, late at night, when the shop is quiet and my brothers sleep peacefully, I whisper again. We're safe now. And this time, the world listens. The end, and also the beginning.